When Noah and his family stepped off the ark, they only knew that they were in the mountains. They had no idea where they were otherwise. Fortunately, it was the month of Ziv, our May, so they had summer before them to explore the New World and to find warmer living conditions. According to current creationist thinking, the original continent of Pangaea broke apart into today's continents during the flood. The top several miles of land was completely transformed by water, while the ocean floor was replaced by magma from within the earth. Continents crashed into each other, forming the great mountain ranges. Nothing was left that could be recognized. Imagine 8 people landing on a distant planet in our galaxy with limited resources. Noah and his family were like survivalists, only they had God's blessings to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. In this segment, we will follow Noah in the first leg of his journey from the landing place of the ark in the mountains down the Euphrates River to the Fertile Crescent. Let's use Google Earth to look at the Near East, which is also called Southwest Asia. 3 regions are important to us: the mountains in the north, shown in yellow, the Fertile Crescent in the middle, in purple, and the dry, flat plains in the south, in red. Mount Ararat is located in the northern mountainous region known as the Armenian Plateau. These hills are mostly between 5,000 and 10,000 feet high. Mount Ararat itself is 17,260 feet high. The Bible says that the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The Hebrew word used here for mountains can also mean a mountainous region, so it does not necessarily specify a particular mountain. The Armenian Plateau is about the size of Oklahoma, while the Fertile Crescent is about the size of California. The Fertile Crescent lies below the Armenian Plateau. It lies between 1,000 and 5,000 feet in elevation, with some parts going down to sea level. The name was coined in 1916 by Egyptologist James Henry Breasted because farmers could grow crops there without irrigation. Since much of it is in a Piedmont area, or the hilly flanks of the mountains, it trapped the clouds and received enough rain for crops to grow naturally. Mesopotamia is the lowlands where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers come together and flow into the Persian Gulf. It is so flat that it only rises an average of 1 foot every 3 miles. About half of the maps that I find on the internet include Mesopotamia in the Fertile Crescent, which can be quite confusing. Mesopotamia did not receive enough rainfall for what they call dry farming. It was impossible to grow crops there without irrigation. The southern part of Mesopotamia is called Sumer, and its inhabitants Sumerians, not to be confused with the Samaritans of the Bible. Sumer is Shinar in the Bible, where Babel was built. We will eventually talk about Babel, but much later. Many locations have been proposed for the landing site of the ark, mostly from traditions and sightings. In spite of explorations, no discovery of the ark has been confirmed so far, and probably won't be. The ark was only built to last for a year, not for 4,000 years. It doesn't really matter. Genesis 8:4 merely says that the ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. When we consider the mountains of Ararat to be the mountainous region of the kingdom of Urartu, only 2 sites fall within this area: Mount Ararat and the Kagizman mountain range. The tall Mount Ararat has been the most popular choice for the landing site of the ark, but there are problems with that. It was named Ararat late in time by Europeans, not by locals. It also didn't exist at the time of the flood. The geologist Timothy Clary pointed out in a 2019 article that Mount Ararat is a volcanic mountain that came into being after the flood. If the ark had been there, it would have been covered by lava. Instead, Clary proposed a range of mountains called the Kagizman Range that did exist at the time of the flood. It is located in the center of the Armenian Highlands. Do we even know that the ark landed on the summit of a mountain? There was a greater probability that the ark landed on some intermediate elevation. Genesis 8:4 and 5 do seem to imply a mountaintop. The ark rested on the 17th day of the 7th month. The water level then went down for 2.5 months. Then, on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen. It sounds like the ark was on the highest mountain and that other mountains were covered with water for 2.5 months. Some have suggested, however, that fog from the warm, humid ocean prevented them from seeing far off until the waters had dried up. My personal choice for the landing site of the ark is the present town of Agri at the foot of Kagizman, but my choice is as arbitrary as another. 2 rivers drain the Armenian Highlands, the Euphrates and the Aras. It's important to note that people have always preferred to travel by water than to travel by land, especially if they didn't have a particular destination. Until the Industrial Revolution, shipping by water was many times cheaper than shipping by land. That's why cities have sprung up along rivers. Anywhere that the ark landed within the Armenian plateau, Noah would have followed one of 2 rivers. We can then ask which of these 2 rivers lead to the first settlements and to the beginning of civilization. When we look at the Aras River, we do find ancient remains. In fact, human fossils found at Dmanisi in 1991 are considered the oldest human remains outside of Africa. Neanderthal remains have also been found in the area. At Gobustan, 4,000 rock carvings depict hunting and sailing. Early people evidently explored the Caspian Sea on ships they built there. Although early people were in the region, settlement was rare until the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age. This is not where Noah settled. While the Aras River was on the north of the Kagizman Range, the Euphrates was on the south. It drained a large extent of the southern and western mountains. We find a dozen early settlements along the Middle Euphrates River in the Fertile Crescent. Some settlements were culturally connected, such as Navali Kori and Kayonu, probably because of family relationships. All early settlements gave evidence of peaceful trade across long distances. On this map, I traced out the Euphrates River and its tributaries. Very few settlements existed in the upper Euphrates because the river flows in canyons with high walls. I measured 270 miles from Kagizman to an excavation site known as Tepesic. Since there were no forests yet, the natural thing for Noah to do would have been to make rafts from the wood of the ark and float down to wherever the river led them. Floating at 5 miles an hour would have taken 54 hours to Tepesic. Another 90 miles to Keferhoyuk would have taken 18 hours. Then another 100 miles would have taken them out of the mountains. Let's say it took them 100 hours of floating downstream. It could have taken weeks or months, but there is no reason that they could not have been out of the mountains by late summer. Not only is it likely that Noah floated down the Euphrates River, it's also likely that he stopped when he got through the canyons. This current Google map shows that the canyons end where most of the early settlements are found. The plain was perfect for grazing sheep and aurochs and for planting crops. The river was a perfect source of water and a means of transportation. Why would he look any further when he had all that he needed, at least for the first year? The yellow line here shows the 3,000-foot elevation that separated the mountains from the foothills. We can imagine large herds of sheep, goats, and pigs being raised on this well-watered plain. In 2006, the Max Planck Institute for Plant Breeding Research announced that it had found the oldest variety of grain still growing on the slopes of Karac. 68 varieties of cereal that are being grown today come from this mother of all cereal. Farming can be traced back to this plain. Noah planted a vineyard, and he also raised sheep and planted grain. Archaeology agrees with that. We have seen that it's not necessary to find the ark, since we can identify its general resting place. Moreover, we have identified a likely route for Noah to have taken to the Fertile Crescent. In the next parts, we will look at archaeology to see how they lived in the Fertile Crescent. Then we will look at exploration and settlement patterns in the Levant, Anatolia, and Zagros Mountains, leading to Sumer and Babel. This is how archaeology works. It uses known facts to create a hypothetical scenario that is open to scrutiny. I have combined conservative hermeneutics with sound archaeology to create a model for biblical paleoarchaeology. You won't find such a clear and detailed study anywhere else. I promise to keep each video short. If you have learned something about the Bible as history and how God walks with mankind, then subscribe to this channel and tell others about it. I'm on a mission to educate everyone about the most ignored, misrepresented, and crucial period of human history. Join me by educating yourself and by telling others about life after the flood.